You're listening to the Plane Talking UK podcast, the UK-based podcast written by a passenger for anyone. And here are your hosts, Carlos Stebbings, Matt Smith and Neville Bounds.
Well, hello and welcome to episode number 244 of the Plane Talking UK podcast. I'm Carl Stebbings, and not joining me here in the PTUK studios this morning is my co-host Matt Smith, because he's off driving buses somewhere, or coaches I should say. He'll have me for that one, in around the East Anglia region. I don't know where he's gone today, but joining me as always is the legend that is over in his massive mansion over in Buckinghamshire. Welcome, Neville Bounds.
Morning, Carlos. Hello, everybody. Hope you are all well and are having a nice weekend. And lots of people in the chat room already. Some of them extremely dedicated, waking up very early in the morning on the American continent there. So thank you very much. And yeah, looking forward to a good show. I think we have some great stories and a great interview later on too.
So it is it's the 25th of November. Blimey, we are closely getting our way towards Christmas time. It's just around the corner, and it's just gone 10 a.m. I should say in the morning here in the UK. And as Nev said, we've got loads of stuff to pack into the show today, and we're going to say a big welcome to everyone who's joined us in the YouTube chat room this morning. There's a few of the family members in. We've got excuse me, Auntie Liz is in the chat room. We've got Mariana, Ray Davis. G'day to you, Ray. We've got, just scrolling up the list here, Neil Lamwarn's also in the chat room. I think he's having a morning off from going up to Brunty today for a change to see the Super Guppy. So welcome to everyone who's joined us in the chat room this morning. So Nev, how's your week been?
Yes, a hectic one again. Lots of video editing going on in the studio here, and we've talked about this Richard Johns interview, so I've been going through that. I've just finished doing part 3, so it's going to be a 6-part series, and we're going to start running that from next week, so I'll tell you more about that a bit later on. But yeah, very hectic at work again, and at home also. So we're going to go out for some fresh air later on, because I've been stuck in this room for so long now. I'm getting a bit of cabin fever, I think. So yeah, looking forward to that.
And on that note, actually, Nev, for those of you listening to the show, obviously you all know that we had the big interview of Richard Johns a week ago, and I think it was a week ago now, isn't it, Nev? You done the interview with Sir Richard. And as Nev said, I've been lucky enough to have a preview of the work that Nev's done to put those segments together, and I've got to tell you, guys and girls, that you have got something incredibly special to look forward to in the future shows with these interviews with Sir Richard Johns, because they are fantastic. And Nev, you really have done. You pulled the whole bag of cats out of the bag, I think, on this one. So well done.
That's very nice. I just point the camera and edit it together. But again, we've got to thank Captain Nick for doing such a sterling job of doing all the research and talking to Sir Richard as well. It was fantastic. And of course, when you're filming these things, you miss a lot of it, and it's not until you play it all back afterwards you realise how good it was. So I think everybody's going to enjoy this very much.
So when we are going to start the show then, as we do, with our rundown of the weekly news from around the world and the UK. So if you're ready, Nev.
I am, yes.
Let's go. So kicking off this week's first news story, and this one is on the expressstar.com website. And big news here in the UK, really, because we all had the story of last week, I think it was, Nev, about Flybe. And Virgin Atlantic confirms it is considering a takeover of the ailing airline Flybe. So shares in Flybe took off. Very good there. After Virgin Atlantic confirmed it was in talks about taking over the struggling airline. Flybe is the biggest airline operating at Birmingham Airport, employing around 400 people at the airport, where it currently runs around 750 flights a week on 29 routes. But now the regional airline put itself up for sale last week, over warning after profits for the earlier year. Virgin Atlantic, part owned by Sir Richard Branson, is thought to be vying with Stobart Air to buy Flybe, and is interested in its takeoff and landing slots at London's Heathrow Airport. In a statement from City, the Virgin confirmed it was reviewing options in respect of Flybe, which range from enhanced commercial arrangements to a possible offer for Flybe. Flybe's shares were up nearly 20% in stock market trading during the morning, when the news broke, at 11.4 pence as a result of speculation over the deal. The Exeter-based carrier is battling challenging conditions in the airline industry, which has been hit with failing demand and a £29 million hit from rising fuel costs and the weak pound. Flybe has 78 aircraft operating from smaller airports, including Birmingham, London City, Southampton and Norwich, here just up the road from us, and flies to destinations all around Europe. Trade unions have already raised concerns over the impact of Flybe's sale on the carrier's 2,300 employees. But statutory pre-tax profits for the 6 months to September the 30th more than halved to £7.4 million from £16.1 million earlier in the year. It saw group revenues fall 10%, or 4.4% on an underlying basis to £409.2 million after it cut capacity by 9%. Now, what do you reckon, Nev? Do you think this is going to work? Obviously, you said about the slots at Heathrow.
Well, yes. I mean, poor old Flybe, they don't have come in for some stick sometimes. Everybody's always complaining about being late or calling them fly maybe and that kind of stuff. But I think there's a genuine need and requirement for this kind of regional operation in the UK. And in March of next year, they're going to be starting a Heathrow to Newquay service. So perhaps I might just give the airline a quick tinkle and see if they want me to do a review for them on the inaugural flight, perhaps, and get Mr. Philip Davis on board as well. That would be good. But I think the airline is extremely viable, and I think it needs some good investment behind it. So let's see what happens over the next few weeks, because I think it could be quite significant. But yeah, I think they're a great airline, and also very useful as a feeder hub. I would imagine from Norwich. Do they fly to Schiphol as well?
I'm not 100% sure, actually. I think they possibly do. Yeah.
So they're very good feeder airlines into the main hub airports as well. So let's see what happens, because yeah, I think we definitely need a Flybe, no question about it.
Bubums. So Nev, the next story is an awesome one for you, as always, with BA.
It is, and it's on the independent.co.uk website. And this is more excellent content from Captain Dave Walsworth of BA. And he's posted another illuminating video from the cockpit, this time on BA's inaugural Boeing 787 flight to Johannesburg in South Africa. Dave, who has more than 58,000 followers across Twitter and Instagram, has become a social media sensation thanks to his behind-the-scenes footage and photos showing what it is like to fly from a pilot's perspective. His latest clip, uploaded to YouTube on the 20th November, shows the last 10 minutes of flight, BA 51 landing at the airport on the 29th of October. The aircraft was captained by Simon Scoley, with Senior First Officer Mark Grigg at the controls and Senior First Officer Nigel Holgate in the jump seat. The video shows two perspectives, one from the cockpit and the other from outside the plane, giving a clearer view of the Johannesburg landscape. It's captioned to describe the step-by-step process of landing the Dreamliner, from turning towards the runway and lowering the undercarriage to changing the wind flap settings and taking control of the aircraft for landing. A lovely landing by Mark, writes Captain Dave, as the jet hits the runway smoothly. I hope it doesn't hit the runway. But the aircraft was the Boeing 787-8 Golf Zulu Bravo Juliet Hotel, and it landed on the airport's 03 right runway. 10 of aviation fans commented on the video on Twitter, asked Captain Dave extra questions about certain elements of the landing procedure. Previous videos from Captain Dave of flights touching down in San Francisco have netted hundreds of thousands of views online. Another of his videos shows the A380, the world's largest passenger plane, taking off from London's Heathrow Airport. According to the heart rate monitor of my watch, my pulse during takeoff is lower than when it is driving to work on the M25, says Captain Dave on film. One of my main reasons for producing these videos is to show how relaxed our working environment is. I hope that our more nervous passengers will see we are totally at ease with flying. So he's done some great content, and it's great that BA are behind all this as well to allow him to do it. So I hope we see lots more from Dave on this kind of stuff, because it's really compelling viewing, I think.
Yeah, I watched this video, Nev, yesterday afternoon, and had it on the big screen at home, and it's awesome just to see this from the perspective of like the pilot's eye view as such. And the great thing as well is you can see all the flight deck and everything they're doing on the approach and stuff. And yeah, it's another one of those awesome videos that there's a lot of on YouTube. Yeah. I don't know whether you trawl YouTube much, Nev, for the cockpit videos.
Just quite a lot, yes.
So the next story is on where are we here? Let's get this page back up. Blimey, Matt makes us look so easy when he's here on his own. Yes. This is on flightglobal.com, and the headline here is Laudamotion takes first A320s under Ryanair ownership. Yeah. Ryanair unit Laudamotion has taken delivery of the first two Airbus A320s being leased from SMBC Aviation Capital. The aircraft, MSNs 2924 and 2928, are the first aircraft delivered on lease to the Austrian carrier since Ryanair increased its stake in the operator to a majority share early this year. The first aircraft has been just been delivered to Laudamotion, while the second will follow in January next year. Once cabin reconfiguration has been complete, the fleet's analyzer shows the two aircraft are 2006 build models. Laudamotion Managing Director Andreas Gruber says that we are pleased to conclude this deal with SMBC Aviation Capital for these two Airbus aircraft following the acquisition of 75% in Laudamotion by Ryanair. This is an exciting time for the airline as it enhances its fleet. A consortium led by Niki Lauda acquired assets of Austrian carrier Niki. The leisure carrier Lauda founded from administrators earlier this year. It launched flights earlier from summer on former Niki routes using Airbus narrow-body aircraft, and Ryanair, who obviously will have the Boeing 737 operator, quickly took a stake in the carrier ahead of acquiring a majority holding, and now it flies as a Ryanair subsidiary. SMBC Aviation Capital Chief Executive Peter Barrett says that in 2003 they leased one of our first Boeing aircraft to Ryanair. We are delighted now to include the transaction with the airline for its first Airbus aircraft, which will be incorporated into the Laudamotion fleet. Now, Nev, do you think that we'll see possibly in the future these Airbuses with some Ryanair livery on?
Interesting, isn't it? Because Ryanair's business model has always been about keeping the same type of aircraft in their fleet, and obviously this is somebody else's fleet. It wouldn't surprise me, to be honest with you. It would not surprise me at all to see some Ryanair stuff going on there. Clearly there's a market for that, for those kind of interconnecting routes and regional routes, especially in Austria and Switzerland, I guess, as well. So yeah, might well see some.
Yeah, I'd say it would be interesting to see those whizzing around the country, because we all, as we said, everyone's used to seeing the Ryanair livery on the 737. So yeah, it'd be good. I think it'd be a good addition. I think for them to have a not a hugely mixed fleet, but obviously the 320 is a very popular narrow-body aircraft all around Europe. So Nev, next story is all yours.
No one's having their lunch or breakfast or dinner, because on the foxnews.com website, it tells us that airlines are shrinking the size of their toilets in an effort to squeeze more passengers in. But as these pictures show, it's becoming a tight fit. More seats mean more revenue in a business where profit margins are squeezed tight, and it seems passenger comfort has been pushed aside. Well, no change there, I can tell you that. Passengers have already begun complaining about the new toilets, and there are even fears that smaller size could lead to more air rage incidents. American Airlines estimates adding extra seats could generate $500 million per year, and it's beginning to use smaller bathrooms on its new Boeing 737 MAX aircraft. The new toilets are 24.5 inches wide, 10 inches smaller than on those airlines' older 737 models, which allows 12 more passengers into the cabin. According to reports, passengers say that the toilets are so tiny, it's a struggle to wash more than one hand at a time. Water is also said to splash everywhere as sinks are so small. Flight attendants have complained the rest of the plane is so cramped that if both toilet doors are open, they get stuck in the galley. For tall passengers, such as 6'4" Barry Brandes, a retired singer from Somers, New York, who travels several times a year on United Airlines, that means an even tighter squeeze. If I don't duck, I hit my head on the door. I can't stand up completely, so I have to twist myself into a pretzel to use the facility, he told the New York Times. Even for people of average height, the size of toilets is becoming a problem. Eddie Santos, who's 5 feet 8 inches, recently flew from Los Angeles to Washington and told the Washington Post, "I had to twist my shoulder just to get in. It was uncomfortable." And the editor-at-large for the travel website, thepointsguy.com, posted a picture of himself standing inside one of the new toilets. Well, that was careless, wasn't it? But he wrote, "Oh, fun, what's this little thing? A vertical luggage storage compartment." On a United flight from Houston to Orlando, he watched passengers as they emerged from the smaller lavatories and said all of them seemed really surprised. Fears have also been raised about the air rage stemming from the new small toilet size. "We believe that these lavatories contribute greatly to the general decline of the in-flight experience and have the potential to lead to increased incidents of air rage," said Shane Staples, a spokesman for the Association of Professional Flight Attendants at American Airlines. American Airlines Captain Jimmy Walton said that the new 737 MAX bathroom was the most miserable experience in the world. "You've added 12 more seats, no more lavatories, and you've shrunk that lavatory to 75% of what it was before. I can't turn around in it," he said. Jami Counter, Vice President of Flights at the TripAdvisor and SeatGuru.com air travel sites, said airlines have decided that the lavatory doesn't matter that much as they try to squeeze in more seats. "I think they may have gone a bit too far. They're taking it off of what is already a very skinny configuration." Well, I suppose it's okay as long as you have decided what you're going to do before you go in, if you saw what I mean.
Yeah, it's the shrinking, the whole shrinking toilets thing. I think has been a subject matter for some time now on the various platforms of the passenger experience kind of thing. But I do see the point. I mean, some of the pictures, I would put them up on the screen, but I can't seem to get the NDI capture thing to work, unfortunately. But some of the pictures, if you take yourselves over to the foxnews.com website and look up airline passengers share frustrations with shrinking bathrooms, there are some rather interesting photos here. And I must say, Nev, I've travelled on 320s, the 73s, and I can't remember the loos ever being quite this tight. What do you think?
No, no. I think that there's normally a reasonable amount of room in sort of all the short haul flights that I take, which tend to be on Airbus aircraft these days because of the route network, and they're fine. They're just fine. But these ones, I think they've probably gone a step too far or too narrow, maybe, because yes, some of the ladies and gentlemen of the larger size will definitely struggle. In fact, by the sounds of it, even people of average size may struggle too.
If you do want a huge bathroom with a shower and plenty of room to run around, then all you've got to do is basically pay sort of £15,000 or £20,000 and buy yourself a first class flight with say Etihad or Emirates or something like that. What do you think, Nev?
Well, that's that's certainly an option. Yeah, but no, I think, and this is the problem, isn't it? Obviously, that they're trying to squeeze so much more revenue out of the whole flying experience. I mean, it must be quite difficult, but I think reducing the toilet size to this, I think that's just probably it's going to make people upset. I think it's going to be make it very difficult for the crew as well, because you're trying to maneuver people in and out of these places. It's a bit tight at the best of times. But yeah, I think they're going to have a problem with this, definitely.
On the plus side, though, Nev, there is some really lovely neon lighting in these toilets.
Oh, well, that easily compensates for it then, doesn't it? Surely.
So moving on to the next story, and this one is on Indy100.com, and this is Nev. This is a story that I found earlier this week whilst I was very busy at work, and on the various interweb sites, and I watched this guy's video on YouTube. And for those of you who you may have seen this story, but it was very entertaining, I will say. So the headline is "Man leaves bad review of airline during flight and it only makes things worse." So the headline or the story is writing reviews of or criticising a brand, venue or service is part and parcel on the internet these days. You can literally find reviews for anything these days on the internet, with or without consequence. However, you probably shouldn't write a review of something when you're using it, especially when you're on board an aircraft. For some reason, that's exactly what travel vlogger Josh Cahill did during a recent flight with Malaysia Airlines from Kuala Lumpur to London. Cahill has a big following on YouTube, which he does, and an Instagram following. And according to him, he has flown with Malaysia Airlines before. While in the air, Cahill noticed that the hospitality of the crew wasn't quite up to scratch, and the in-flight entertainment system wasn't working, and the food was, yeah, I watched it. It was pretty not very nice at all. Halfway through his 14-hour flight, he shared his discontent by posting on Instagram. From there on, he says the experience got worse as it became obvious the crew had seen the post. It probably didn't help that he tagged Malaysia Airlines in the post as well, and the crew were not best pleased. Cahill said he was denied refreshments, including water, and told to stop filming on his phone, and was even publicly shouted at by one member of the in-flight team. Cahill eventually agreed to stop filming, but when he arrived in London, a representative from the airline was there to meet him, who did apologise for his experience. He then said that he received a string of template apology emails from the company, including one from the CEO, and is now of the opinion that he knew exactly who he was and trying to stop him from documenting anything else about the flight. Cahill has put together a 20-minute review of the in-flight on YouTube, where he goes into great detail on how he claims he was treated. Cahill flies around 150 times a year, and he obviously knows a thing or two about what makes a good flight. And although the staff acted unprofessionally, he perhaps will think twice the next time he is compelled to write a bad post during a flight. And now I did watch the video for this on YouTube, and you know, you have to kind of watch these things and think, well, did this really happen? Was it that bad? You know, and it was. He literally, as soon as I think it was the customer service centre had obviously messaged the aircraft or the flight deck, and the captain had obviously passed on the message to the kind of senior flight crew or flight attendants on the flight, and they really did turn on the screws to him, because he was just treated like rubbish, basically. Refused drink, as he said, and all through a post that I think pretty much these days, anyone who has a bad experience at a restaurant or a hotel, you know, if you're there and you're getting treated bad, you're going to tweet it, because tweets are, I think, one of the biggest ways to complain to companies now, especially the big companies now. And you know, most big companies now have a 24/7 Twitter group sort of management team that all look after all the complaints via Twitter. And obviously this guy done this on Instagram, and yeah, it makes a good watch. So if you go onto YouTube and you look up Josh on there, you'll find the video, and it's all in high definition. You'll be pleased to know, Nev. And the sound quality is good as well. But yeah, Josh Cahill, look him up on YouTube. What do you think about this, Nev?
Well, yeah, I mean, he's got a bit of a point here, but I think there's ways and means of going about these things. And of course, the reason that people take to Twitter or social media generally to air their complaints is that their complaints aren't or rarely dealt with properly at the time, whether it's a restaurant or what have you. So they feel obliged, compelled and entitled maybe to put this on social media. But if you do that, then you've got to expect some possible consequences of it. And so from my point of view, if I've got a problem anywhere, it doesn't matter where it is, I'll really try hard to resolve it, locally on the day or where it is, if you possibly can. I think tweeting stuff up, it can be inflammatory, and I think that you've got to be very careful before you do it. Nonetheless, I mean, if he has received a problem or some bad service, then that's fair comment, because that's what the free speech thing's all about, surely. But yeah, you've got to be a little bit careful about how you go about it, I think, personally.
Mariana makes a good point, actually, in the chat room. She says that most people are quick to post complaints, but not compliments. Now, I hold my hand up, and I'm not that person. I will always post TripAdvisor reports when I have great experiences or when I have bad experiences. Or I'll tweet when I've had a great experience, and I'll try and mention the person's name, especially if I'm in a hotel or a restaurant. I'll always try and get the person's name who's given me a great service and post that, because I think that helps for them in their job. But yeah, Mariana, that is true. I think a lot of people will post complaints rather than post compliments. Are you Nev? Are you a big Twitter user, as in using for sort of complaining?
No, I'm not really, because I just, for me, I just don't see that as the right platform to do it with. I'll certainly use it for compliments, or if there's been some excellent service or whatever it is. I'm very happy to put it on there, but I've rarely used it for complaining about things. Again, as I said before, I try to resolve it on the day where I am. But if you can't, then you end up sending an email. But of course, this is the problem with sending emails. It just gets lost in the system somewhere, or the provider can choose not to respond to you at all. But of course, the moment you put it in the Twitterverse, then everybody can see it, and it becomes, massively negative publicity for the company, potentially. Although, of course, there are always two sides to every story. So I think that when there are genuine complaints and the company tries to do its very best to resolve it, that's fair enough. But you never quite know whose side of the story to believe as an outside viewer of these things, I would say. But
I suppose in one way, Nev, though, before we could move on, I suppose it does prove a point that Malaysia Airlines obviously has good Wi-Fi.
Well, that's very true, and I haven't actually looked at this video, but I hope he didn't shoot it vertically. I hope he shot it horizontally and properly. No, otherwise, I might have to make a complaint about it.
No, it's done properly. Don't panic.
Well, that's good. That's the main thing. Yeah.
So, Nev, the next story is for you, and it's this one. This one amused me quite a bit, actually.
Yes. Well, it's on the USA Today, and the headline says, passengers reportedly asked to help pay for repair on LOT Polish airline flight. And it says that passengers on a Polish Airlines flight were asked to help pay for their plane's repairs, according to British media outlets Metro and the Daily Mail. The flight from Beijing to Poland early in November was delayed due to a hydraulic issue, which required a new pump before takeoff, according to the news sites. After mechanics demanded cash payment for a new pump, passengers were asked to contribute to the bill, which ran into about $350. LOT Polish Airlines spokesman told the Daily Mail an employee at the Boeing warehouse in Beijing refused to accept a bank transfer and insisted on cash. There are no circumstances that justify asking money from passengers. In a statement to the Metro, the airline apologised for the incident and said that the passengers were compensated for the delays and those who contributed were reimbursed. I know that you encountered an unusual situation today for which I would like to apologise from the bottom of my heart, he said. The repairs delayed the flight for about 10 hours before landing safely in Warsaw, the news site's report. USA Today has reached out to LOT for comment, but clearly they have not commented further. Bit of a shame. Wouldn't be the first time that this has happened, I don't think. And I have heard situations talking to various airline captains over the years where they've been down route and there's been a money problem somewhere, so they've had to use their own credit card in order to get fuel onto the plane. So that's one thing. I think asking the passengers to contribute is probably a step too far, possibly. There you are.
Would you have given them a couple of quid, Nev, if you're on the flight?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yes, I think if it helps people out, and and they took the BA American Express card, absolutely fine, and I get some Avios points as well. So, as long as I got a receipt, get me money back, I suppose.
So moving on to the next story, and this one is a great one for those of you guys and girls out there who've got young children. And this is on the sun.co.uk website, obviously one of Nev's favourite publications online. And the headline is "An End to Screaming Kids." Airline introduces beds for kids on planes in economy at just 34 quid. So a new design from budget airline June will allow children to drift off to sleep on flight beds. So they will be able to put their children into a bed in economy with just a price tag of 34 quid for 2 kids. So the bed itself on low-cost carrier June, which is a part of or an arm of Air France, is installing Puma beds. Puma beds, which are designed by a company called Gevin on its A340 aircraft. They'll be named Cozy June seats, and it reports that the beds make use of the spaces where the legs go when sitting up, extending the seat out to create enough space for a child to go to sleep instead. Air New Zealand introduced a bed that goes across 3 seats earlier this year for kids to sleep on while sitting with a parent, but this involves paying for 3 seats. The clever new design on June will mean families only have to pay for a normal seat price for each child. The designs are aimed at families travelling with 2 children or more. Cozy June seats will be available on each of the airline's A340s, but there are limited numbers. They will be in rows 33 to 36 and are designated for families with 2 children or more. They'll cost €20 extra, or £17 per child, which is not bad when you consider how much less stress a flight could be for your family. Sun Online Travel previously revealed the best way to keep kids happy on a flight, as advised by cabin crew and pilots on their website. And these tips include investing in noise-cancelling headphones, which I'm sure Nev has probably got a pair of those for his flights. So the cabin senior cabin crew said that bringing noise-cancelling headphones for newborn babies and toddlers helped them to feel calm and relaxed, as well as helping with the pressure change. Actually, that's not a bad idea, Nev, for kids having those noise-cancelling headphones, because that probably would take a lot of the stress out of flying.
Yes.
Looking at these beds, what do you think of these beds, Nev? I think, unfortunately, I can't put the blooming pictures on the screen, but for those of you, take yourselves over to the Sun website, and I think it's a really good idea. I do think it's a good idea.
Yeah, and I think that anything they can do to help children, that's a good thing. With regard to noise-cancelling headphones, though, I've got to say, and it's caught me out before, and it happened, in fact, coming back from Gibraltar the other week, where I've got Mrs. Nev's noise-cancelling headphones on, I think it was, and I sort of was so comfortable with it, I forgot to clear my ears as we're descending, into Heathrow, and it wasn't until we actually got on the ground I thought, oh, I really should have, yawned to try and clear my ears a bit, because when you've got noise cancelling headphones on, it sort of puts you in a bit of a cocoon, as it were, and everything else is shut out. So I still think it's quite important to be able to clear your ears properly on the descent into airports. Otherwise, it can be very painful indeed, especially if you've got a bit of a cold or blocked ear. Nonetheless, though, anything that can be done to improve the lives of those on board, whether it's children or adults, I think gets my vote, definitely.
Now, I've got a set of noise cancelling headphones which I use when I'm flying, and I used them last week when I was with Armando. We had a little flight, and they do make a whole world of difference. I tell you, when you're flying GA aircraft, to be able to have noise cancelling headphones on takes so much noise away from the engine noise and stuff. It makes everything so crystal clear. But they're slightly, I mean, it's the same idea, but a slightly kind of different thing to obviously the posh ones that obviously you have, Nev, when you're flying. I'm guessing you're a Bose man?
Oh, yes. And I get a lot of stick from my colleagues about the Bose products. I do like a lot of what they do, and but no, I do quite like them, and they're actually Mrs. Nev's. In fact, I just borrow them when I'm off on various trips myself. But yeah, it certainly reduces the fatigue level, and as you say, in GA, it's almost essential, I would say. Otherwise, it's just so noisy, isn't it? But yeah, makes a huge difference, definitely.
Now, the next story, Nev, is for you, and it's obviously one of the airlines we talk about a lot on the show, winning another load of awards.
They do, don't they? And there's no stopping this airline at the moment, because on the Emirates247.com website, it says that the company made a clean sweep this week with award wins across multiple countries, from Russia and Belgium to the UAE, a testament to the airline's consistent delivery of industry-leading travel experiences for its diverse customer base, and its commitment to investing in innovative products that will ensure its customers fly better. Emirates was named Best Airline in the World and Best Airline in the Middle East at the prestigious 2018 Ultras, in a vote taken by over 500,000 readers of the Telegraph's luxury travel magazines, Ultra Travel UK and Ultra Travel Middle East. The awards recognise the world's best providers of luxury travel experiences. Sir Tim Clark, president of Emirates Airlines, received the award at a ceremony held last night in Dubai at the iconic Burj Al Arab Jeremiah Hotel. The ceremony was attended by key members of the global travel industry. In Russia, Emirates was recognized for its operational excellence and outstanding customer services when it scooped 2 prestigious awards as Best International Airline at the 8th National Geographic Traveller Awards 2018 and Best Middle Eastern Airline at the Business Traveller Russia and CIS Awards 2018. The National Geographic Traveller Awards ceremony was attended by industry-leading figures as well as media representatives from across Europe. Earlier this week in Belgium, Emirates was named the Best Long-Haul Airline 2018 at the Travel Magazine Awards 2018. The ceremony was attended by 700 industry-leading figures, travel professionals, and media representatives. This is the 21st Travel Magazine Travel Awards, where global brands are recognized as best hospitality providers in Belgium. Emirates is an industry trendsetter when it comes to providing a better customer experience, both on board and on the ground. Emirates was the first to unveil enclosed first-class private suites in 2004, and in 2017 the airline took luxury travel to the next level with its new Boeing 777-300ER first-class private suites. With floor-to-ceiling, the new Emirates Boeing 777 suites are in a league of their own when it comes to exceptional luxury and privacy. The spacious, fully enclosed private suites are laid out in a 1-1-1 configuration, offering up to 40 square feet of personal space each. Well, that's incredible, isn't it? The new private suites also showcase the latest in cutting-edge onboard technologies, including a NASA-inspired zero-gravity seating position, virtual windows for middle aisle suites, and a personal video call service, along with unique lighting and climate control features. Over the last 12 months, Emirates has continued to deliver on its Fly Better promise to customers, elevating the customer experience through significant enhancements to its Boeing 777 and A380 aircraft. The airline invested $150 million to introduce a new business class cabin and configuration on its fleet of Boeing 777-200LR aircraft. On the A380, Emirates' newly enhanced onboard lounge continues to wow its customers with modern finishes and expanded seating options. Emirates also continues to provide customers across all classes unrivaled entertainment options, with more than 3,500 channels in over 40 languages through its in-flight entertainment system, ICE. On the ground, Emirates' 7 business class lounges at Dubai International Airport concourses A, B, and C recently underwent $11 million worth of makeover, reflecting the airline's attention to the ground experience as an integral part of the customer journey. Emirates' global network of dedicated lounges has grown to 42, reaffirming its commitment to ensuring a consistent experience for its premium customers and Skywards members. Emirates operates a modern and efficient all-wide body fleet comprising 270 Airbus A380 and Boeing 777 aircraft. The airline has continued to expand internationally and today flies to 159 destinations in 85 countries, connecting passengers and facilitating trade across 6 continents to and through its Dubai hub. Those numbers are just eye-watering, aren't they, Carlos? It's an incredible airline these days, and the expansion that they've made over the last few years has been really significant, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, they've really gone, all in with the service, especially and stuff. Obviously, with the introduction of their big posh first class suite and the 777-300s, which obviously I had the chance to go in last year at the Dubai Air Show and have a look around in that, and that is a phenomenal experience on that, because it is a fully enclosed suite, the first class suites on there. But even, I've always said before, even the Emirates economy class is really good. It's so good. Legroom, seat pitch, everything is great. The service, the food, the drinks, and obviously their in-flight entertainment, as the story says, is it's very, very good. Very good quality screens, good quality touch screens. The only thing that Gemma did say, that when she flew back from Dubai a few weeks back, was that they don't do their hot towel service anymore when you board the aircraft, which is a shame.
Shame. Not a showstopper, but one of those nice to have things.
Yeah. So moving on to the next story, and this one is on the postandcourier.com website. And we always talk about the Russians every now and again on the show, kind of flying in and upsetting the Royal Air Force, but I think Boeing couldn't do without them, because supersized Russian carrier to keep production on track at Boeing's North Charleston campus. Federal regulators say that a Russian airline that specializes in transporting heavy-duty cargo will be allowed to haul jet engines to Boeing's Dreamliner campus to avoid end-of-year production delays. U.S. Department of Transportation this week approved an emergency exemption for Ulanovsk, Russia's based carrier Volga Depna, to carry, and I hope I pronounced that right, to carry engines from GE Aviation's Evandale, Ohio plant to the 787 assembly sites in North Charleston, Everett, Washington. Volga Depna already has permission to fly cargo between Russia and the United States, but no point-to-point within the US. Volga applied for the exemption as part of an effort to meet GE's delivery commitments for Boeing without causing undue delay in Boeing's production line. Failure to deliver the engines by air could delay production and subsequent delivery of Boeing's aircraft, which would cause financial harm to GE Aviation, Boeing and their customers, who said in the application for the exemption. The carrier added that the exemption is necessary to respond to an emergency created by unusual circumstances not arising in normal courses of business. The application did not specify what the unusual circumstances were, and a spokesperson for GE Aviation could not be reached for comment. Boeing did not specifically address any production issues involving the GE engines. Spokeswoman Libba Holland said in a statement that we regularly work with our suppliers and use various transportation methods to deliver parts to support our production system. Boeing has been beset by supplier issues this year, most notably on its 737 program, but also on the 787 program as it ramps up production of aircraft. Boeing plans to build 14 of its wide-bodied 787 Dreamliners each month beginning next year, up from the current rate of 12 aircraft per month, split between North Charleston and Emirates sites. Volga Depner says it plans to transport engines and other parts and equipment on the Antonov 124-100 aircraft, the world's largest military transport plane, with a maximum payload of more than 330,000 pounds, almost twice that of a C-17 Globemaster. Volga said that no civil aircraft operated by US carriers are capable of carrying oversized cargo, and ground transportation is impractical because the engines are needed on an expedited basis. Well, it's safe to say, Nev, that obviously it's one hell of an aircraft. Seen this in the air, not seen it on the ground, but seen it in the air, flying over East Anglia here. I think it's a good idea. I think that Boeing have took this option because obviously they can transport a hell of a lot of stuff in one hit with this.
Yeah, oh, definitely. And when it says the last paragraph there that it's capable of twice the payload of the Globemaster, it's just absolutely incredible size, this aircraft. And they got an operation out of Stansted, is that right? For the
yes, they have
cargo.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, they're flying in and out of there. It's one of those aircraft that when the kind of the news hits the aviation kind of network, that all the spotters descend on Stansted when this aircraft comes in, because it is obviously a marvel to see in the sky. But so Nev, moving on to the next story, and it's a milestone, I think, for Boeing, this one.
It is, isn't it? And I had to read this story a couple of times. So I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It's on the businesstraveller.com, and it says that Boeing celebrates the 787th Dreamliner with a special livery. And Boeing has created this special delivery for the delivery of its 787th Dreamliner aircraft, which will be delivered to China Southern. The manufacturer posted images of the aircraft on its Twitter page, along with the following message. The 787th 787 Dreamliner is freshly painted. This jet will soon join China Southern's fleet with 210 plus non-stop new routes around the world, the largest windows, and other cabin comforts. No wonder passengers love it. The aircraft features the wording 787th Boeing 787 emblazoned in red and blue on the fuselage. China Southern has a total of 30 Dash 8s and Dash 9 aircraft on order, with 17 delivered so far. Japanese airline ANA was the launch customer for the Boeing Dreamliner in 2011. And to date, over 40 airlines have taken delivery of the Boeing 787 family aircraft. That's an incredible number, isn't it, Carlos? I hadn't realised how many they had been manufacturing, but that's a big number, isn't it, in such a relatively short space of time?
It is, yeah, it is. It's one of those liveried aircraft that Boeing like to do, I think, because they've done this as well with the 737 when they had, I think it was their 2000th or 1000th, I think it was now. They painted one up especially for the airline that they sold it to. And for those of you, take yourselves over to businesstraveller.com or look up the 787th Boeing 787, and you'll see it's a nice paint scheme, this, because I'm a big lover of the colour blue, obviously. It's great to see this aircraft obviously painted up with the 787 or the 787th Boeing 787 logo on the side, but also Nev, with the ramping up production of the 787, it's not going to be long before they hit 1,000.
I know exactly, and well, it's despite the problems that they've had initially with this aircraft, the usual engine things and the battery problems they had, and you're going to get that with new aircraft on the line, aren't you? No, they are certainly they've got their foot hard down with producing more and more of these, and clearly it's a very popular aircraft. I certainly like flying on it, and I'm looking forward to doing that again in July when Mrs. Nev and I go to Toronto.
Are you now?
Do you know anyone that lives in Toronto?
Could be someone in the chat room. No.
There you are. So, looking forward to that very much. So,
what's the airline of choice, Nev, for your trip across today?
Oh, that would be BA, Carlos. Just as a bit of a surprise for you. Yes, we've got quite a nice deal with those chaps and ladies. So we'll be off to see Liz Piper in Toronto next year, which I'm very much looking forward to, I have to say.
Are they using the -8 or -9 on that route, Nev?
Good question. I think it's a -9. I'll need to double check. I can't actually remember, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I would have thought it would be the -9. Have to look that one up. So moving on to the next story, and this one is a bit of a sad story, really, because it's involving someone being hit by an aircraft. Unfortunately, this one's on the independent.co.uk. And a man is hit and killed by Boeing passenger plane on runway at Moscow airport. So an Armenian being removed from Spain sprints into the path of an 80-ton jet while boarding a transfer flight from Russia. A passenger plane taking off from Russia's biggest airport ran over and killed an Armenian man after he reportedly fled across the runway while he was being deported. Russian officials said the 25-year-old man died after being hit by the landing gear of a Boeing 737 as it took off from Moscow to Athens on a flight at Sheremetyevo Airport. I know Pitt would probably know that one off by heart. The man, named locally as Albert Yepperman, has thought to have been discovered after the jet's crew told air traffic control to investigate the incident, believing they'd hit an animal in the darkness. He was understood to have been in the process of being deported from Spain, having initially been placed on a flight from Madrid to Moscow. He was then transferred on a flight to Yerevan, the capital of Armenia, but escaped to the runway while being placed onto an airport taxi bus. The man went through the airport gate during boarding for the flight, and he ran onto the runway, unfortunately. And the story goes on to say that ground crews discovered damage to the fuselage and human remains on the exterior of the plane. Ooh, not very nice at all. But obviously they're going to investigate this because it's obviously a violation of air travel safety regulations. It's going to be a case of how did he manage to escape, Nev? And obviously it could have been a lot more serious than this had the damage to the aircraft could have possibly been worse.
It's got a whole load of trouble, lined up, hasn't it? If something, I can't even begin to think about what the consequences of this would be. But it's a very sad story, but a very worrying story as well in terms of how somebody had access to the airside environment as well, like that. So,
yeah, sad story. But on a lighter note, just to bring things back up again, Nev, the story that on the Independent here, which is obviously quite a big newspaper here in the UK, the story obviously uses a photograph of an aircraft here, and I can't put it on the screen, which is really unfortunate. But for those of you watching, it's the picture in question is not a Boeing, is it, Nev?
Oh, let's have a look. I've just come off that page actually. So no, it's not. No, that looks like an A321 or maybe an A320.
Yes.
So, I mean, why bother with media accuracy? I mean, it's a plane, isn't it?
So are we putting together then, Nev? Are you going to do a kind of Nev's media gaffes kind of segment?
Yeah, well, yes, I think I will. I'm not going to do it as a regular segment, otherwise we won't have any time to do any real stuff. Because we'll just, it'll be all populated with that. But maybe for a bit of a Christmas feature, possibly. If I can put it together in time, we'll do Nev's top 10 media gaffes. That would be quite good to do a top 10, wouldn't it? I'm just making this up on the fly, obviously, because I've informed nobody about it yet. But maybe I could put something together which would show us the top 10 or the bottom 10, depending on which way you look at it. Yes, aviation errors in the media.
Exactly. So, Nev, the last story for you is well, it's an Airbus story, obviously, especially for all our Airbus lovers.
Yeah, it's on the aerotime.aero website. It says that this is quite an interesting story, I think. Airbus's latest plans may involve a new narrow-body jet as well as an upgraded version of its latest family of wide bodies, the A350 XWB. And the plane maker is already hiring staff for the task, a report by Bloomberg on November the 21st indicates. Bloomberg states that it has come across Airbus job postings for designers and engineers in Toulouse and Madrid, where the European plane maker's two manufacturing sites are located, as additional manpower to work on the proposed projects. According to the job postings, the company is planning to produce a new short-haul model as well as a neo version of the A350. Both planes will be powered by a new generation of engines starting from mid-2025. Airbus says, however, that the search for new recruit does not guarantee the jets will actually be produced. Airbus knows it needs a new product to take on Boeing's proposed new 797 mid-sized jet and would step on the turf of the blockbuster narrow-body A320neo. Meanwhile, the A350neo solution would aid Airbus's competition with Boeing in the wide-body market. Originally conceived in 2004, the A350 long-range twin-engine jetliner was positioned to compete with Boeing's 787 and 777. Now, Airbus needs to brace for the upcoming 777X and the rumored 797, which would essentially be a smaller version of the 787 Dreamliner. Except that the A350 XWB is already an upgrade, an all-new and modern family of Airbus mid-size long-haul planes. The A350 XWB family comes in two variants, the A350-900 and the A350-1000. The Dash 900 variant entered into service back in 2015 with launch customer Qatar Airways. Just earlier this year, on February the 20th of 2018, Airbus announced it delivered the first A350-1000 to the carrier. Qatar Airways has a total of 37 orders for the latest model and is the largest A350-1000 customer in the world. So there's new stuff going on at Airbus here as well, but no mention of the A220 in this article at all, which I would have thought would have been the logical aircraft, shorter haul, single aisle. But maybe they've got something else up their sleeve that we don't know about.
Yeah, it's. I know Boeing are obviously they're trying to fill the gap and design. I think the 797 is to fill a kind of 757 gap that's been left, obviously because 757s are starting to be phased out as such across the world. They're still very much in use, but they're quite an old product now. The 757, they're trying to fill that gap, but.
Neil Lambourne in the chat room says, seems to me like Airbus and Boeing lineups are getting very complicated. You could not be more correct, Neil. I have to say, try to keep up with it all. Yeah, very much so.
I mean, are we going to get to the stage, Nev, where we're going to start to run out of numbers here?
Well, that's a good point, isn't it? Because obviously, 797, they're going to have to start renaming things completely. But there's lots of Dash, 500, 800, 1000 stuff as a possibility as well. So, it'd be interesting to see what the next thing is. A bit like number plates for your car, isn't it? When they start running out of numbers and letters to use. But we'll have to see what happens. But clearly, there is a market for this kind of aircraft. No question about it.
So that is where we bring the commercial news segment to a close this week. But coming up next, we've got something incredibly awesome, and I'm going to hand that over to Nev to introduce.
Yes, well, this is one of these interviews that's taken a little while to tee up because it just did. And way back, I think, in March or April this year, I started talking to the folks at RAF Gibraltar to see if they could accommodate an interview with me when I was over there for my birthday at the start of November. And sure enough, that's exactly what they did. Just a bit of background on the airfield itself. RAF Gibraltar is a Royal Air Force station actually on Gibraltar, and no military aircraft are currently stationed there, but RAF, Commonwealth and aircraft of other NATO nations periodically arrive for stopovers, exercises or other temporary duties. It's administered by the British Forces Gibraltar. The station is a joint civil military facility that also functions as the ROC's civilian airport, Gibraltar Airport, with the civilian airport's passenger terminal and apron facilities located on the north side of the runway, whilst the apron and hangar of RAF Gibraltar is located on the south side of the runway. Well, I was very lucky to be granted an interview with Trevor Hammond, who is the general manager of the ATC facility at Gibraltar. And with this shared facility of both military and civilian operations, I began by asking Trevor how this actually works in practice.
To be honest, these days air traffic is so similar, both in the civil and the military, that the two combine flawlessly, to be honest. There are absolutely no issues. The regulations are very similar in many respects, and the service we provide is with civil licenses anyway. But as I say, in terms of phraseology and things like that, there are almost no differences. So yeah, flawlessly, I would have to say.
So in fact, you're employed by NATS rather than the RAF?
I'm employed by NATS. It's quite a complex contract in the way it's been managed, because Gibraltar falls under a much wider MOD piece, which is a Marshall Airports contract, which is a process by which the MOD are refreshing the equipment at many of their airfields, and there are a number of air traffic services provided at a number of airfields, and we fall under that contract. So I work for NATS. NATS is contracted to another company called Aquila, and Aquila is contracted directly to the MOD.
All right, interesting. Now, since the construction of the new terminal here in the back end of 2011 and 2012, the whole airport seems to have taken on a new life. What other expansion plans does the airport have? And will that mean that you'll have to update your systems here?
Well, as I just alluded to, the MOD itself is updating a lot of our equipment, the radars, both primary and secondary radar, the radios. So it won't involve a great deal of procedural changes for us. There will be certainly some changes in the way we see the equipment, the way the information is delivered to us. We'll have Mode S on the SSR, for instance, so we'll have more information available. Procedures should remain very similar. Hopefully we'll have nice, reliable equipment, modern equipment requiring relatively little servicing, which will be fantastic. The airport itself is working. There's a huge project going on at the moment to build a tunnel under the eastern threshold of the runway. That will clearly make a huge difference to the operation and the potential for the airfield. At the moment, of course, I'm sure many people will know that we have a very major highway that runs right across the middle of the runway. That highway links Gibraltar and Spain, so all traffic, whether it's on foot, on bicycle, on motorbike or in lorries, everything has to go straight across the middle of the runway, and that of course involves a process whereby every time an aircraft lands we have to close that road and make sure that the runway is available and safe for an aircraft to land on. In about 18 months we expect the tunnel project at the eastern end to be complete, and then all of that traffic will be moved to the tunnel, meaning that there's no impact between aviation and that road transport, which would be fantastic because of course it means we can operate as many flights as we can possibly attract into the airfield without upsetting the day-to-day workings of Gibraltar in terms of people's comings and goings.
I was going to ask you about the tunnel project. This has been some time coming, hasn't it? Do you think it will totally transform the way the airport operates?
It gives the airport a huge opportunity. It'll certainly transform the way we operate up in the tower, because a large part of the process to make the runway safe for aircraft involves ensuring that we have the road closed, secured, the runway clean of any foreign object debris that may have fallen off a vehicle or litter that people may have thrown. So clearly that takes some time to prepare the runway for an aircraft to land. All that process will disappear overnight once the tunnel is open, and we could potentially then exploit the runway to its full capacity, which could be as many as 12 movements an hour here. There's quite a long back track, so it does limit us, but 12 movements an hour would still be very significant if we could get anything like that. So huge potential once the tunnel is completed, yes.
Just think about the upgrades that you're thinking of doing, and with technology advancing in the field of GBAS, which is ground-based augmentation systems. Are airlines looking for better facilities at airports, precision approaches and that kind of thing, so they could better utilise what we'll have available?
Yes, of course. At the moment, the way we operate here is we do have a radar. We provide radar services to aircraft and tower services to aircraft. Because of the nature of the approach to runway 09 in particular, which is 90 degrees to the runway, you fly up the Bay of Gibraltar and then turn 90 degrees at about 3 miles. An ILS would be of no value whatsoever on that runway. It would do nothing. So if an aircraft needs a ground-based aid, we do that using the primary radar, and a surveillance radar approach would be flown. Clearly, we have somebody dedicated to providing that service, so we can operate as many of those as there is demand for them. However, the local authority has also now invested in an RNAV approach, so hopefully in the very near future we'll have an RNAV approach available as well. I know pilots like to fly it already. However, at the moment there is a restriction because we're still proving the approach, so they can only fly it in good weather conditions. Clearly, it'll be advantageous when they can fly it in poor weather conditions, and that will clearly facilitate arrivals for aircraft. It'll also mean that they have more stable approaches, fewer go-arounds. Not that we have a huge number of go-arounds, but obviously it's one of the few airports that a modern airline pilot has to fly the aircraft onto the ground these days. So just occasionally, maybe because of the weather, maybe because of the wind, or maybe because we just haven't quite got the lineup correct, we do have the odd go-around because of that.
Just thinking about that approach onto 09, of course, that's a very critical manoeuvre to carry out, because obviously you want to steer clear of the Spanish airspace, I guess. But how do you actually interface with your Spanish colleagues on a day-to-day basis?
Well, the centre is Seville, and every aircraft is handed controller to controller, so there are no automatic processes there. So we communicate with Seville, we have a direct line, and we talk every day, several times a day to them. We have a letter of agreement in place about how we operate and how we interface, and it works very well, to be honest. There are no, fortunately, air traffickers are professionals through and through. Flight safety and expedition is all they're interested in, and we have a fantastic relationship with Seville and work very closely together to ensure that whatever is going on in the airspace in the vicinity of Gibraltar happens safely.
Do you think, with the UK leaving the European Union in March of next year, do you think that's going to have much operational effect on what you do here?
That's clearly a big question that I don't think anybody absolutely knows the answer to. I'd like to think, I'm pretty confident that it won't have any impact in terms of the provision of air traffic services. As I said earlier, we've got a letter of agreement with Seville. So we have a modus operandi that we just continue to use. So unless for some reason it becomes politically complex, and I really can't answer to that, I don't see any reason why the way we operate here should change at all.
Yeah, interesting. I think it's all about being professional and working with other like-minded professionals too.
It absolutely is, and I think that will hopefully extend throughout Europe in terms of the aviation industry, and I really don't think it's in anyone's interest to see the aviation industry disrupted at all. We all want to go on holiday, we all need to do business, we all need to fly around. More people are flying than ever. I think in the UK last summer was the busiest year on record. That's only likely to grow. It's only likely to grow around Europe, so it's absolutely in nobody's interest to throw a spanner in that particular works. So I really don't think Brexit will have a major impact, but as I say, nobody really knows the answer.
We're considering doing a Brexit special on the show, but it's so inflammatory at the moment. I think we might leave that until things have settled down next year.
I think that's sensible, yes. And I think the biggest issue is everyone can speculate, but nobody knows the answer. And is there much value in speculation? Probably not.
Just thinking about the operations here, in 2016 British Airways A320 had quite a serious bird strike just on its takeoff run. Are birds a particular problem around the airport here, do you think?
They are a problem, as they are at any airport, and obviously different airports have different bird species which are a problem species. For us, the problem is the yellow-legged gull. It's a herring gull, effectively, which is quite a large bird. Fortunately, it doesn't fly in flocks, so you're not going to hit a flock of them. You may hit a bird. I still am confident that actually we have wildlife control on the airfield for every aircraft movement at the fast end of the runway, if you like, dispersing birds all the time, keep particularly that species away. We have a very good relationship with the local authority because, of course, the birds aren't really based on the runway, if you like, or on the airfield. They roost on the rock. They go and feed in the waste tips over the frontier in Spain at various landfill sites. So they tend to be transiting across the airfield, and we can disrupt that. We work closely with the local authority in terms of keeping the numbers down as far as the roosting on the rock goes. We even have a very good relationship with developers, so anyone who's going to develop a building close to the airfield, and in Gibraltar pretty much everything is close to the airfield. One of the hoops, if you like, that they have to go through is to satisfy the airfield and the aviation authorities that their development isn't going to have a negative impact on flight safety, and apart from the obvious things like height and glare from the windows, bird management and bird control is one of the factors that they have to consider, and they have to satisfy the authorities that their building isn't going to attract birds near to the airfield, which may then obviously fly towards the airfield if they're startled. So we've got many processes in place. We are acutely aware that birds are a risk, but I think it's a very well managed risk. It's a well understood risk, well managed. You are obviously occasionally going to be unlucky, but really we have 3 or 4 bird strikes a year close to the airfield, and the majority of them are fairly minor, and the aircraft just continue once they've been inspected.
It's interesting, isn't it, that there's so much attention paid to building regulations and this kind of thing with regard to the airfield. I hadn't realised that was such an important part of the development here.
Yes, and it keeps us all very busy all of the time, to be honest, because there is a lot of development going on in Gibraltar, and we really do have to be careful that we don't in effect make it impossible to operate the airfield because some development's been approved that seriously infringes the obstacle limitation surfaces, that causes tremendous glare down the approaches at a particular time of year. So there are many factors that need to be considered with every development, but as I say, the developers in Gibraltar are aware of the issue. They're very good, even to the point of raising cranes and lowering cranes. We find ourselves engaged on almost a daily basis with talking with developers about can they raise that crane, what time should it go up, what time must it come down by. So it's a very good relationship. There's an acute awareness that the airfield needs to operate. Certainly,
since I haven't been here for a couple of years, I've noticed a lot more development going on in the last 2 years here.
Yes, it's a bit of a building site, to be honest, when you walk around Gibraltar. I'll say no more than that.
And what was your personal career progression that got you sat here at the tower at ATC?
I was actually born in Gibraltar, educated in the UK, and in my early 20s I came back, and having been an employee of British Telecom in the UK actually, I left that, came back, at a time when it was announced that the air traffic was going to be civilianised by the RAF. I saw that as an opportunity, and so off I went to do my licences. Fortunately got my licences, but wasn't returned straight to Gibraltar. Did some work in Llanbedr in the north of Wales, actually operating Jindavics, they're called, which are basically these days would be a drone, which exercise in the areas just off the Welsh coast with the Air Force or the Navy. Spent about a year there, a little bit of time also learning the ropes at Woodvale, and that was with Serco, and then Serco brought me to Gibraltar and worked as a controller, tower and radar here for a number of years, 11-12 years, before the opportunity to become the manager came along. Did the interviews and became the manager. I live in Gibraltar, it's my home, and I couldn't have a better job, quite honestly.
What other challenges would you say that there are here at Gibraltar?
Water at both ends of the runway. Not unique, of course, there are many airports that have that. We have a cruise liner terminal quite close to the end of the runway, and cruise liners these days, as most people who have been on a cruise will be aware, are enormous. So they're a significant consideration. We again have an agreement with the Port Authority about the movement of the cruise ship, so we work very closely with them to make sure that aircraft movements and cruise movements are deconflicted. We have a number of marinas near the airfield, which again we need to manage, and we have agreements with the marinas so that we don't get vessels with tall masts coming out at inopportune moments and affecting flights. We're always vigilant to these things, but clearly what we don't want to do is have a flight disrupted because something's in the wrong place at the wrong time. So we manage that very carefully. The weather itself, Gibraltar is a very unique microclimate. So in early summer we tend to get a lot of fog in the morning because a warm easterly wind coming from the Levant blows across cold waters. They're still very cold in June, and obviously moisture comes out of that and we get fog. So fog can be a challenge, although not a challenge we can do much about. And probably for pilots, one of the biggest challenges can be the wind. Southwesterly winds in particular blow across the rock, which is only about 500 metres from the runway itself, across final approach. And that can set up all sorts of very difficult and challenging turbulence, from just straightforward lumpiness that you might expect on final approach normally, to a large rotor that sets itself up that creates quite a substantial up and down draft. So what tends to happen is aircraft fly into the rotor if it's there, and you can often see it there by the patterns on the water beneath it. So the aircraft flies through it at anywhere between 4 and 2 miles, and it enters an area of downdraft. So the aircraft gets pushed down. Of course, the pilots put power on to compensate for that, and then hit the updraft, which lifts them above the glide path, and often too far above the glide path. So whilst it's not particularly dangerous, it makes it impossible to land because it's a 6,000 foot runway, 1,800 metres. So at that point, if you are a bit high or too high, certainly in an airline, you're not going to be able to land. The wind can then cause very extreme conditions. We can get water spouts and things, off final approach. Once conditions get like that, nobody even makes an approach. Pilots are warned off.
They're all off to Malaga at that point.
I'm afraid it's a diversion to Malaga. Yes, there's nothing we can do about that. Again, it's always safety first. For us operating as NATs in Gibraltar, and for the airlines and for the MOD, safety comes first. So nobody's going to try and do anything silly and land in those sorts of conditions. And quite frankly, if I were a passenger on the back of a plane, I don't want to be thrown around either.
Exactly. When an aircraft does divert to Malaga, is it the airline's responsibility to get the coaches there for the operator?
Assisted by the local handling agency, it's fundamentally the airline's responsibility. Obviously, if it's a case that they know the weather's really bad and the forecast is really bad, they may well operate straight to Malaga, in which case it's quite a slick operation getting buses. The buses are waiting for you. If it's an unexpected diversion, which may occur for who knows what reason, if it's unexpected, the delay's a little bit longer, but again, it's a pretty slick operation. It will cause you a 3 or 4 hour delay on your flight, but it's not as bad as you might think. And I need to point out that diversions, although I think people have a perception that we have a high number of diversions, we have a low percentage. It's probably under 1% of flights a year divert to Malaga, so it's not bad. It's not bad at all.
Certainly looking at the approach plates to Gibraltar here, some of the patterns that you see, as you've just mentioned, look quite horrific, and it is possible to get a tailwind at both ends of the runway.
That can happen. Fortunately, it's usually a relatively light tailwind, but particularly in the summer, if the wind backs because of the sea breeze, which is basically created by the land heating up and sucking air up, and that causes a south, or rather a westerly wind, to back towards the southwest, or even as far as south if it's a very light wind. What happens, is it obviously hits the rock. The rock almost acts like the bow of a ship, splits the wind, and then the wind curls around the rock, and we end up with possibly a 4 or 5 knot tailwind at both ends of the runway. That's usually actually fine for the airlines. It's just about within their tolerances, so it seldom causes a major issue, but obviously pilots have to be acutely aware that they are landing with a tailwind. The margins are very comfortable. Modern A320s, which is the majority of the flights we get here, but we get 737's as well occasionally, and even 757's very occasionally, can stop very quickly, and they rarely need to apply their full brakes. tend to be stopped perhaps 2/3 of the way down the runway and under control.
Yes. Does the operation here allow for any GA flying at all?
Yes. I think it's fair to say very few people are turned away. So yes, we get a lot of business jets. That's clearly for those who can afford it, or for those businesses who actually, time is very much money, need to operate that way. We get a lot of business jets here. They represent about 25% of our overall traffic. Smaller GA is unusual. We mostly see it in the summer, and by smaller GA, obviously I'm talking about your Pipers, your Cessnas. They may arrive in the summer, usually Europeans, French or Germans who are flying down to Morocco perhaps, and I think Gibraltar's a good one to have in the logbook, so they'll often request, and they will usually be accepted, perhaps not in every case, and certainly once the tunnel's ready, I'm sure they will all be accepted and very welcomed.
Yes, it'll certainly transform the operation here, I'm sure, when that happens.
Yes, as you can imagine, it can be quite difficult if you've got 4 or 5 GA aircraft fairly close together. You don't really want to close the road for half an hour and bring Gibraltar to a gridlocked standstill for the sake of landing 3 or 4 PA-28s. It would probably not be appropriate use of people's time, and it would hurt the economy. But once the tunnel is gone, of course, there are no restrictions then. So yes, hopefully once we have that tunnel, everything will be accepted.
Well, Trevor, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you today. Thank you very much indeed for your time.
No, thank you very much, Nev. Much appreciated. Always good to talk about the airport.
Well, Nev. Round of
Did you enjoy
applause.
that?
Round of applause.
Thank you.
That was absolutely fantastic.
It's a fascinating place, isn't it? And Trevor was very generous with his time when Sue and I went to visit him. And I found out a lot more information about the airport that I didn't know before, especially the bird activity as well there. Yeah, every time an aircraft takes off or lands, there's a proper runway sweep to make sure there's nothing left on the runway by passing traffic or passengers as well. But yeah, very good.
During that interview, Nev, Neil Lamore in the chat room came up with a very good question, because you put a lot of work and effort into the bits and pieces you make for the show. And a good question Neil said was, how long does this kind of thing take to organise, for the benefit of those who are not in the chat room now?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we'd already got a flight and hotel booked for November the 1st anyway, which is when I was going over there. So I thought in about sort of March or April time of this year, I might just drop Trevor a quick note and see if they could accommodate it. And they were happy to, but they have to get a lot of clearance to do that, of course. And also had to make sure that I had sent the content to them before we broadcast it as well. So in this actual case, it took about 6 months to tee it up, but sometimes it can be less than that. Yeah, the MOD and NATS were very accommodating, and that makes it great. But yeah, on this particular occasion, it did take about 6 months to fully tee it all up.
Oh, very good. Well, you done well, Nev. You done well. And obviously we've got the Sir Richard Johns interviews coming up very soon as well, which again are going to be epic, I will say. Yes,
I'm pleased to say that we subcontracted the interviewing process to Captain Nick, because just considering the sort of questions that we might be asking him, Carlos might ask him about does he like the TriStar, Matt would be asking him, how much RAM have you got in your PC, and I would be asking him, what do you think about the new 31-inch seat pitch on the BA A320s? So we thought we'd need to get somebody proper military to ask him the question.
Exactly.
So Captain Nick was our first choice, and he has not let us down, I have to tell you.
No, he done very well. And like I said, for those of you, it is a real treat coming up soon. So make sure you tune in. I think I don't know when we're going to air the first episode. Nev, any ideas?
Oh well, I think if we're not too busy next week, we could certainly kick off the first one next week. Good. We're going to have it in 6 separate parts, because there's a big story to tell. So we thought we'd chunk it up into bite-sized pieces. So each interview is probably about 15 to 20 minutes long, but very worthwhile. And it's a fascinating insight into a gentleman that's been highly decorated and had a very senior part in the Air Force, of course.
So we've got some military news coming up next, and then before we finish the show, we've got some news, obviously, on the Christmas competition. A little bit of news on there about what we're doing with that, and then we're going to start to wrap things up. So, Nev, are you ready to do some grey stuff?
I am, yes. Off we go.
Off we go. So, kicking off this week's first military news story, and this one is on the Royal Air Force's website, raf.co.uk, I should say. And this is quite good, this one, actually, for those of you who live up and around Salisbury Plain in the UK. And the headline, record-breaking drop for the RAF Atlas 400M. So the Royal Air Force Atlas A400M has delivered a cargo load weighing 23 tons by parachute over the Salisbury Plain in a record-breaking test of the transport aircraft's next-generation capabilities. The drops, representing the heaviest overall load ever dropped by a UK aircraft, took place as part of a trial to confirm the Atlas's ability to deliver heavy loads such as military equipment, supplies and humanitarian aid without needing to land. The trials were overseen by the Defence Equipment and Support, or the DE&S, in partnership with the Royal Air Force, the QNETIC and Airbus parts of the military. The results from the trial, which took place on the 6th of November, will now be fed into the Atlas development programme, which is qualifying the aircraft to perform such operations in the Royal Air Force service. By comparison, the maximum cargo weight deliverable by container delivery system from a C-130J Hercules is approximately 15 tonnes. And the DA&S Atlas A400M delivery team leader James Brown Dawson said that the successful trials involving the largest load ever by air dropped by UK aircraft are an impressive demonstration of the A400M's ability to deliver essential cargo where it is needed. This has been a fantastic team effort, bringing together staff from the DE&S and the Royal Air Force's A400M community at Bryce Norton, as well as our industry partners, to mature tactical capabilities for frontline use in the Royal Air Force operations. The UK's Atlas fleet is being developed to complement the Hercules fleet in support of transport operations all over the world. Atlas trials are undertaken by 206 Squadron, which is based at Royal Air Force Bryce Norton, alongside frontline squadrons. And the International Atlas programme, being delivered by Airbus, is supporting around 8,000 jobs in the UK. In total, the UK RAF will receive 22 Atlas aircraft, which are all expected to be delivered by the early 2020s. And Nev, we've seen these at the various air shows, and I was thinking, looking at the picture on this particular story on the Royal Air Force's website, and seeing all these parachute loads of equipment being dropped over Salisbury Plain. You know, it's going to be a mammoth job picking all this stuff up to take it back to base.
It's a massive area, isn't it? But I certainly do like the A400M. It's one of my favourite aircraft, and it must be a very, very versatile machine as well, I would imagine. So, yeah, it's a great aircraft. A lot of effort going into producing that and making it effective in real-world situations as well. So.
Very true. So next story is really, really, really good news for our friends over in the US, Nev.
It is, and it's on the aviationist.com, and it says that the US Air Force has posted limited information about a new F35a demonstration team for the upcoming 2019 airshow season. The information appeared today on the official US Air Force Air Combat Command aerial events page. The webpage hosts official information about the various Air Combat Command flight demonstration teams that include the F-22 Raptor demonstration team, the A-10C Thunderbolt II demo team, the F-16 Viper demo team, and the Heritage flight teams. The Air Force has not released specific information about how or if the F-35A Demo Team will perform differently in the 2018 demonstration season, but the new team may hint at a solo F-35A Lightning II flight demonstration separate from the Heritage flight formation. If the US Air Force F-35A does fly a solo demonstration under the new team designation, the routine could include some aerobatic flying, although Air Combat Command has offered no details about the team's demonstration routine. Included on the new page is a look at what the F-35A Demo Team patch may look like, a US flag waving in the background of the patch with a front view of an F-35A as seen on many F-35 unit patches. The patch has the inscription F-35A Lightning II Demo Team. A clever creative element are stripes in the flag background forming lightning bolts. The US Air Force F-35A Lightning have flown limited demonstration flights at air shows already, but normally as part of the Heritage flight demonstration, a formation of aircraft from several eras that showcases the heritage of Air Force aviation. In general, while the formations are spectacular and the flying is precise, the Heritage flight formations with the F-35A did not specifically showcase the capabilities of the F-35A in a high-performance flight regime. There have been a couple of notable exceptions to the F-35A flight demos, though. Lockheed Martin test pilot Billy Flynn flew an aerobatic display in a US F-35A at the 2017 Paris Air Show at Le Bourget Airport in France. US Air Force F-35As from the 57th Wing at Nellis Air Force Base have also flown in air-power demonstrations that included some high-performance flying in combination with other US Air Force aircraft to simulate various operational scenarios. These aircraft did not perform specific capabilities. These aircraft did not perform a specific capability demonstration of the F-35A. Well, that sounds interesting, doesn't it? Looking for some demos coming up for the next 2019 airshow season in the US. That'll be great.
Yeah,
really good.
It was obviously we were going to have a demo team for the F-35. You know, we've obviously got the Royal Air Force and the Blue Angels. And that you've got all these display teams around the world. All different countries have their own different display teams, but obviously different aircraft are obviously flown by each display team. But it's great to see that there'll be a display team having the F-35, obviously, you know, doing a display. And I wonder how many aircraft they'll have in the display team, Nev.
Yeah, interesting, isn't it? But no, this is going to be a very, very popular thing indeed, and it's something that they have to do, isn't it? Really, it's so popular with the general public, and apart from the the commercial benefits, but yeah, to show off some great aircraft at some great air shows.
So the next story is on the Air Force technology.com website, and we've talked in the past about airlines. I think it was EasyJet here in the UK using a drone to survey. I think that was EasyJet, wasn't it, to survey aircraft, Nev. And this one is the RAAF. Uses the DJI Phantom 4 drone to evaluate C-17A Globemaster aircraft. So the Royal Australian Air Force's number 36 squadron has introduced a DJI Phantom 4 drone to support the home station check on the service's C-17 Globemaster military transport aircraft. Home station check is a routine servicing conducted on each Globemaster transport aircraft after every 6 months. The drone is deployed by the squadron to inspect hard-to-reach areas of the Globemaster transport aircraft, reducing height risks to the C-17A crew members. RAAF Commander Air Mobility Group Air Commodore William Kraukalok. That's quite an interesting one to pronounce. Karakalos said this is an excellent example of bottom-led innovation from number 36 Squadron in response to the Air Force's Safety Always program, ASAP. Introducing this drone and these procedures go further to reducing the workplace health and safety risks so far as a reasonable practicable. Air Mobility Group is investing its blimey hell, I need a cup of coffee here. Investigating its blimey Nev.
Applicability.
That's the one.
And that's not easy to say.
Across the air mobility fleet. During the check, the unmanned aerial system is used to survey the tail section inside the aircraft's vertical stabilizer in only 30 minutes, which until now was carried out by maintenance teams using elevated platforms or climbing through small tunnels inside the stabilizer. The autonomous system provides high-resolution images and videos that can be provided to agencies, including the Heavy Airlift Systems Program Office, Boeing, and the Defence Science and Technology Group. Number 36 Squadron Senior Engineer Officer Squadron Leader Evan Smith said the DJI Phantom 4 drone was introduced into service with help from the Royal Australian Artillery's 20th Surveillance and Target Acquisition Regiment. Smith also said that the Army has extensive experience using this particular model and managing the information downloaded from it. He said that we manage the drone and app through a smartphone app and have been able to adapt Army practices to suit our needs. To use it RAAF base Amberley, we've sought approvals from 452 Squadron as the aerodrome operator, although the Air Defence Worthiness Coordination Policy Agency as well. It's safe to say, Nev, that I don't mind heights. I think some people aren't that impressed by heights, but having the ability to do survey work on large aircraft such as the C-17 or even the Russian-built Antonov we were talking about earlier, using a drone rather than having humans on platforms high up in the air is a heck of a lot safer, wouldn't you say?
It is, isn't it? Yeah, and I think to give options like this, I think it's very good, especially with the technology as good as it is now for this sort of drone operation. So yeah, I couldn't agree more. A really good idea.
Are you a lover of these, Nev? Would you, if you got offered one of these DJIs, would you? Because you love your tech and you love your audio and visual, and obviously these Phantoms do have great cameras on. Was that something you'd like to have a play with?
It's really odd. It's never been something that I have been interested in, which is strange considering I do all this other business at home in the studio here. So I just have never got the drone bug. I mean, maybe I will one day, but obviously the quality you can get from these with the cameras and the stabilized platforms is fantastic. But no, it's not something which has ever appealed to me, even if I could afford to do it. So I'm going to just see how the technology goes, and maybe I might dip my foot into it one of these days.
I was just looking actually, Nev, for the price of a DJI 4. Obviously, prices probably differ across the globe, but if you want to go and grab yourself one of these, Nev, now, you can get one of these online now for about £1,000.
Oh, actually, that wasn't as much as I thought it was going to be. Yes, well, I'll have to. I'll just park that thought for the moment, shall we say?
Not on the Christmas list with Mrs. Nev.
No, definitely not. No, I've bought enough gear this year. I think I've just got to give it all a bit of a rest, actually. But,
and on the subject of that gear, Nev, it's proven that this year we've had some great footage and stuff from the air shows we've been to, and I think that camera was definitely a great investment from you, Nev.
It was, wasn't it? Yeah, and it works very well, particularly in low light situations. So obviously the filming that we did at Gibraltar was fine outside, but I couldn't really take any lights with me because I didn't want to take too much gear, to be honest with you, into Gibraltar Airport itself. So the ability for that camera to work very well in low light conditions, certainly in Trevor's office and in the radar room that we shot, was really good. But yeah, been very, very pleased with it indeed, and it's proven itself time and time again this year, both at the air shows and we've been doing interviews with people. So yeah, look forward to next season as well, to take it out and about and into some new areas, which we'll discuss perhaps in a later show.
So Paul Tricker said in the chat room that he's got a cheapish drone at home, and half the time he's too scared to fly it in case he loses it in a tree. Yeah,
it's a fair point.
Yeah, fair point. Yeah, I've got one of the cheap ones at home as well, which I brought online, and I'm petrified of taking it up in case I lose it in someone's garden or, onto the road or into a field and lose it forever. But I think I'll stick because I think Pip's got a DJI and he doesn't even use it. I think. From what I've,
That's right, yeah, and Captain Nick's got a couple, I think. So, yeah, it's not something which has ever really appealed to me. I mean, it should do if you think about it, but it hasn't for some reason. But I'll see how it goes, and I'll wait to save up a bit more money, see if I can find a reason to use it.
Exactly. So, a bit of news then before we start to wrap the show up. Then, obviously, Christmas is fast approaching, and as always, we're going to run our PTUK Christmas competition this year, which the questions were finished and finalised last night for the competition, and there's going to be 12 questions this year. And Nev's got the copy of the questions in front of him, and Nev, I think you'll agree that there's some interesting questions on there. I think for the listeners.
Oh, there are. Yes, there's a couple of. They're not trick questions, but tricky, I would say. So you need to have a think about some of those answers. And Carlos was testing me out last night on a couple of them. I did not get them all right, I have to say. So
although one of them you did get right, though, Nev. One of them you nailed it straight away with it.
I was very surprised at that, and that wasn't just a guess. That was an intelligent guess, I hope. But there's some great questions in there, actually. Yeah,
we're looking forward to that. We're going to bring you the details and the questions of the competition next week on the show, and we're going to announce the winners probably on our. Are we going to do for the last live show we do? I think we'll announce the winners.
Yes, that would be a good idea, wouldn't it? Yes.
Yeah, we've got some great prizes this year. We have really pushed the aircraft carrier out this year for prizes this year. We've got some really great ones for you guys and girls to win out there. So make sure you keep your eyes on next week's show when we announce the questions and the prizes for what you can win. So we've got that to look forward to. And obviously, Nev, you've got the interview coming up soon with Sir Richard Johns. So we're going to play that on the show as well, probably next week. So another one to look forward to as well.
And as I mentioned before, he has very kindly signed a copy of his book there as well for us, which is fantastic, and we'll be sending it out as a prize too this year.
Wow,
so, should be great.
Wow! I have a feeling Mr. Warner may well be applying for the competition, putting his answers in.
Yes.
So we're going to start to wrap things up then for this episode. Nev, where can people find us on the interwebs?
Oh, yes. Well, the best thing to do, if you want to see our website, it's www.planetalkinguk.com. If you want to send us an email, it's podcast@planetalkinguk.com. And you can see our show live as well on YouTube. Just have a look for the links to that. The best place to send your feedback is to our email address, as I say, which is podcast@planetalkinguk.com, or on Twitter we're at planetalkinguk, and also facebook.com/planetalkinguk as well.
Yep, so don't forget to send us your feedback as well. We love to hear some audio feedback. Send it in through any file format. I'm sure Nev and Matt can sort out the files and do their usual magic with the files and have them on the show. So send your audio feedback in as well. We love to hear from you. And also don't forget as well, we have got in the process of printing out some various pictures to go on the wall behind me here in the studio. We've got some great pictures sent in by Jonathan Warner. We're going to have those on the wall for next week. And we've got a couple of other great pictures as well, which have been emailed in through from a few listeners, which will be on the wall behind us. So don't forget, if you want to send us some pictures in, some photos, you can email them to the show, podcast@planetalkinguk.com, and let us know, and we'll put them on the wall behind here, so you can have your own picture behind us here on the wall. And we don't even mind if you're in the picture as well as a listener, do we, Nev? If you're in the picture,
that's right. That's actually some really nice pictures being sent over, folks. So really appreciate that indeed. And looks great actually. That wall's filling up nicely, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm a bit worried actually, Nev, because in the chat room, and Paul Trick has just said that he's going to send a tornado over.
Oh, okay.
I mean, the fence panels have already blown over once
Yeah.
this year in January.
Yes.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
we could do with that.
Look nice. Look nice on the wall, though, wouldn't it?
So that is where we are going to bring episode 244 of the Plane Talking UK podcast to a show. We're going to say a massive thanks to everyone who's joined us in the YouTube chat room this morning, all the family members across the globe, including our Australian listeners as well in the chat room as well this week. So, well, thanks to all you guys and girls out there. And also a big thanks to everyone who downloads the show through the audio version through iTunes, Stitcher, Podbean, and all the usual podcast download sites all around the globe. Thanks for downloading the show. So that's it then. That's where we're going to bring the show to a close. Matt should be back next week in the studio here, hopefully doing all this stuff, because it's incredibly intense, I tell you, honestly. It's easy, but he makes it look even easier when he's here.
It's easy if you're not doing it. That's all
It's
I would
easy,
say.
yes.
If you're trying to present and do all that at the same time, it's a bit of a hand.
So that is where we're going to bring the show to a close. Again, thanks everyone for joining us. Have a great weekend in whatever you're doing. I'm now going to go home and have roast pork for dinner. Whoa, with nice thick gravy. Lovely jubbly. So take care, everyone, and we'll see you on the show next Sunday. We are going to do the show again. And fingers crossed, we're going to have our good friend Grant McCarran on next Sunday's show. Across the pond, so he's going to join us hopefully for next week's live show. So from me, Carlos, here in the PTUK studios, enjoy yourselves, stay safe, and take care. And from you, Nev.
Yeah, see you guys. Have a nice remainder of the weekend. Take care and see you next week.
Bye bye.
See you. Bye.